Okay, we're live now. Thank you.
Thank you for turning up to the Standards Committee meeting today. I don't know, Alex, do you want to take us through the procedure for being live streamed?
Okay, what I'm going to try and do, Shares, if I can put my agenda up and then everyone can see it, and we'll go through the agenda like that, if that's all right.
Okay, thank you.
Can you see that?
Yeah. Yep, can't see. Oh yeah, I can still see it. Yeah. Fine.
Yes, we can see that. If anyone needs to come in and speak, they'll have to interrupt because we can only see 2 or 3 people at once on the screen. Okay, apologies for absence, Alex.
Apologies, Councillor Oliver, and apologies, Councillor Mike Sands, Chair. Okay,
thank you very much. We're now going for a minute's silence for the sad passing of Colin Thrower, who was one of our independent members on Standards Committee for a long time. And I knew Colin for a long time. He used to work for City Hall in the election department a long time ago, and actually came back and helped on election days mostly. So it's a great shame that Colin passed away. And if I can ask everyone to have a minute's silence. Thank
Alex,
you.
Can you please not screen share so Callum can put the slide up just to show that we're doing it on the stream?
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much for that. We move on to item 2, which I believe are the minutes of the last meeting. Yes, Councillor Lovick. No, I can't hear you, Councillor Lovick. I think it might be your earphones again. I'm not sure. No. I think it's your earphones, I think. Now, unplug your earphones, Judith.
You're muted. Sorry, Judith. I just muted you because it was. So just unmute yourself. Perfect.
Right. You said there were 2 apologies. In fact, there are 3 apologies.
Sorry, who was the third?
McCullers.
Oh, sir. Yes. So, thank you, Councillor Lovick. Well done.
He's back in now.
Okay, minutes of the last meeting. We haven't got a copy of this. We're going to bring it to the next meeting. Is that okay, members? Thank you. We move on. Alex, what's next on the agenda, please?
We have got the first main item is to introduce a written procedure for Standards Committee's hearing. So can everyone see that report?
No.
Rightio. Let me try that again then. How's that?
Yep, brilliant.
Perfect. Right, so there we are. So the recommendation is to adopt the procedure, and then Rachel to talk you through this.
Thank you. Rachel?
Yeah, I keep freezing, so I hope you can continue to hear me. Since I've been monitoring officer, I've never had to take a matter to the Standards Committee for Norwich City Council. But if I did, then I would use an approach that's kind of similar to the one that I've attached here and drafted. So I just thought it would be useful to include it and to incorporate it into our standards procedure. At the moment, our standards has Appendix 13A and 13B, and I would look to introduce this as a new 13C. So it goes through the stages of who's a member, who the investigator is, the legal advisor, and what we would actually do if we did have to take a matter as far as the committee. Obviously, it's all set down there for everyone. I don't know, I can go through each point or I can just take questions really. I think there was just, since I drafted it, there was one point I thought I should change, which was on point 14, which talked about the committee usually moving to another room, which in the world of virtual hearings, obviously that isn't relevant. So I would just look to delete that. Again,
do you want to change that to adjourn, committee adjourns or something?
No, I'd still want them to continue. I just wouldn't want them to move into another room. So perhaps I would look for members who weren't part of the committee to be called out of that part of the meeting. Again, it talks about in some circumstances having to postpone, but again, I'd only be looking to do that in really rare situations. I'd always invite an investigator there.
I'm afraid, Rachel, I can only see sort of 3/4 of this, and I'm sort of missing the first 3 or 4 words on each bit.
Yeah, Alex, if you just move it around to the middle a little bit.
Yeah, Chair, this did get emailed out to you, this agenda, so you've had this paperwork as well. This is just, we're looking at.
Yeah.
You didn't get it, Councillor Lubbock?
No, I didn't receive it.
Oh,
no.
okay.
But I've got mine on my screen, so I've got the online one.
Yeah.
But I didn't receive it in the post. No.
No, I didn't post one out. I just emailed them out to councillors because it's only a little agenda.
Oh, that's fair enough. Fine. Yeah.
I did put mine up online, and then when I got into the Zoom meeting, I lost the thing online. So I don't really want to try and get back online because I'll lose the Zoom meeting. So that was a bit worried there. Can I just ask, Rachel, is there anything on there about the independent member being on the committee still? Is that still all the same?
That would all still stay the same, yeah. And it actually, in this case, it might be that, well, I think it's very likely that if it did get to a committee stage, the independent member would be, or independent person would be part of that meeting, and their views would be taken into account.
Would he also be chair if it got that far, or would the chair of the committee?
No, it is likely the chair would be likely to be the chair of the standards committee. So if it was soon, then it would be you.
Okay, thank you. Any other members?
Can I ask a couple of questions?
Yes, Peter.
Yes, certainly.
Thank you. On point 9, it says if there is a disagreement, the investigator, if present, wouldn't you want an investigator to be present?
Yeah, I certainly would want them to be present, but just if for some reason they couldn't be, then that's what's been put in there.
It just seems to me if the investigator wasn't present and there was a disagreement, you'd be in a totally compromised situation. It seems to me saying if present, you would want them to be present, surely.
Yeah, and I would always, when I've had to plan for like another authority, I'd always take into account sort of the investigators' availability and as well as the members. So it would be really unusual for that situation to arise.
It just, the way it's phrased, it just sounds as though, well, there might be an investigator there and there might not. It sounds a bit loose, that's all.
If they weren't there for whatever reason, they would have already filed a very detailed report though.
Okay, leave it then, that's fine. I'm content with that.
Okay, I've got Linda Barber. What a comment on 31. Who's Linda Barber, Alex?
That's me. I'd just like to make the point that there are lots and lots of regulations and things. And then when you get to number 31, the last one, it says the chair has the right to depart from these arrangements where they consider it expedient to do so. So really, I mean, all these rules are all very well, but then the chair can decide to not take any notice of them at all if he chooses, doesn't he? So doesn't it make it a bit of an anomaly, really?
Again, I'm very flexible whether you want this in or not. I think it's been drafted there, or I have drafted it in case for some reason I wouldn't like somebody to be able to say that, well, we've departed from one small point and therefore the whole thing can be challenged. So it was there for some discretion, but I am happy to remove it. It is just all there as a draft, and obviously it will need to go to Constitution Working Party and to full council. So I'm quite happy to make any amendments or take on any suggestions that are made.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Rachel, would it be better if, well, it's you at the moment, but whoever the officer was could actually, instead of the chair, that would be the officer, just in case something
I did think that. So maybe if it's the monitoring officer even.
Yeah, because the monitor officer is
okay, I'm happy.
the one got to do it.
Good idea.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else got anything on the procedure? I haven't heard no one come in. They'll have to interrupt if they need to come in. Okay, so we've got to know. Yes, Leslie, is it?
Yes. I share both of those concerns that have already been raised, and I think maybe if we decide to keep 31 in, then that might cover the exceptional occasion when we didn't have an investigator there. But I think we need to make it clear and set in stone that there is an investigator there unless in exceptional circumstances. And the other 2 points that I wanted to raise was number 4. I think if you're in front of a hearing, I'm not sure that it's fair to say that you can only have another person there with the permission of the committee. I think you should be able to have who you want to represent you, kind of along the same principles as a Mackenzie friend that people use in court when they're representing themselves.
Yeah, well, we actually, you know, when we do, what's that other committee is, personal appeals, there's always 2 people there, and I think there should be 2 people there at the standards as well if they acquire one. But I'm not sure if they would be allowed a solicitor or a trade union rep or someone as a friend. I'm not sure if they would be allowed to have a solicitor or lawyer or barrister or someone like that. I'm not sure if that would go that far.
They are entitled to that.
They're entitled to go that far, Ali?
Yeah.
My suggestion was that you can choose who you have with you, whether it's a solicitor or a union rep or a Mackenzie friend or some other person. And I think you should be able to do that without having to ask the committee, because it just adds to the uncertainty that you'd have to face.
Okay, so should we look to delete the wording that talks about or with the permission of the committee?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have one more point to make on that. It's on 27 and I'm looking at the possible sanctions. And it's I'm a little bit worried about the withdrawal of facilities, because that would mean that you couldn't function as a councillor or would have to step down. So I'm wondering if there should be something that's in between that. Well, I suppose there is with the removal of appointments and nominations. But the sanction F is very severe and obviously would only be used in very extreme cases. But
well, that is one of the that is the worst one you can actually have, to say you're not allowed in the premises to use anything in City Hall. I mean,
also it's as it's drafted now. It's how that actually is in the Constitution at the moment. I've taken that from 13B.
Yeah.
So I would look to delete that from the existing Constitution and just place it in this section. So that's what you've already got.
So it looks to me like it either has to have a time limit on it, or be effectively you have to stand down.
Well, if someone's done something really bad, surely we wouldn't want them to use our facilities, all the services of members, or to access the council, would we?
Absolutely.
I mean,
if it was that bad, we wouldn't want them to be a councillor either. So they
well,
would
you
have
couldn't
to,
stop them being a councillor. Only the elected people can stop them being a councillor. They have to resign.
So
And
we don't have the power to make them resign and call about a by-election then?
no,
Okay.
we don't have the power to do that.
The other issue that seems to be missing, which used to be the case with Standards for England, was that they wouldn't actually get their allowances during that suspension period. So if it was something really quite serious, they would not get access to the council, they wouldn't be able to use their facilities, and they would have their allowances suspended during that period. Because it was always felt when it was Standards for England doing it, that to put somebody on gardening leave, which is essentially what this is, would be tantamount to, people would say, well, they're still getting paid, so why wouldn't they? So I think that needs some reference to that. If you're going to this extreme exclusion, I think you would need to mention that their allowances would be suspended for the duration of that exclusion.
But they would still be a councillor, wouldn't they, Peter?
Yeah, but they wouldn't be able to act on behalf of the councils. They wouldn't be able to take part in any council meetings. They wouldn't be able to get online. They essentially be in limbo, wouldn't they?
And after, if they're not present for a certain amount of time, which I'd need to check, but I think it's 6 months,
yes,
then they automatically can no longer be a councillor. So I guess if this suspension was for, if this happened for 6 months, then that would automatically occur. But it might
be if it was less than 6 months, though.
Yeah, I don't think we're allowed to withdraw their allowances. That's something I can check, but I don't think
if you wouldn't mind just checking it and then either ignoring the point if it says you can't do it. But it used to be the case with Standards when a councillor was suspended for their behaviour.
I think we're forgetting what Rachel said at the beginning, which is that she can't ever remember bringing someone to Standards.
Okay.
So that the offence and the allegations against the councillor must be very serious if we're building a case and taking it to Standards Committee hearing.
Well,
so I think it's relevant to think about that.
I can recall at least 2 councillors, and I've been on the Standards Committee, being brought before the Standards Committee. It didn't lead to a suspension, but it definitely led to a proper full standards hearing.
Yeah, well, I can as well. I've been on at the same time as you, Peter.
Yeah.
Chair, if that checks out what Peter was asking the monitoring officer to have a look at about whether you're allowed to suspend allowances, what is the opinion of the committee then? Does the committee want to see that added into the document?
Well, if it's that serious, I suppose I would do. But is there a clause in there about suspension and stuff like that? Is there a time limit you can put on it? There's nothing about time limits, is there?
There isn't a time limit, no.
I mean, would it be able to get, if we felt it was really, really serious and no training would help and nothing would help, could we do it to suspend him for 5 months? Or, I mean, if you suspend him for 7, that means he can't be a councillor.
I think that is, rather than put that into the constitution, that's something that we should consider if we actually got to that stage.
Yeah, but
this is an extremist, isn't it? But it's the fact that you've actually what the sanctions are makes you want to quantify it, if you like.
And I think the other thing as well is, if we did get to this stage, I would be very much looking around case law. So I'd want to put the relevant case law in at that time, rather than setting something in stone now, when it might be different in 12 months' time if we had to use this then, or 2 years. I mean, it could be next month, I don't know. But I'd be very much guided on what sort of the law states around this area at that time.
I mean, the last person we done was actually leader of the Green Party.
On that note, Chair, I think Councillor Graham wanted to say something.
Leslie?
Yeah, I just wondered if we should, without putting too much detail in it, if we should just say that financial sanctions may be considered.
If they can be, Councillor Graham.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that sounds good, Leslie.
Yeah.
Peter?
Yes, fine. I mean, my view is, what happens if a councillor did something and was sent to prison, say, jailed, and they could very easily be.
He's still allowed to be a councillor. It depends how many months he get put behind prison.
I know. I know, but that wouldn't be anything they've done within the council situation, but it might lead them into disrepute. So all right,
Leslie?
I think we can try too hard to cover all the bases.
Picking up on that question, I just wonder if it would make any difference what they were in prison for, because it might be something that they then get found not guilty for on the basis of necessity. Or
well, we're actually had councillors who have gone to prison since I've been here, but not gone enough to be suspended as a councillor. So they're actually turned up to come back as a councillor.
Yeah, I think we could go too deeply into this.
Yes, we can.
Do we have any more comments on this then?
No, are we all happy what Rachel's going to do? Okay, thank Judith. Linda, Leslie?
As long as we pick up the point that was made earlier.
Yeah.
Chair.
Yep. Yep, definitely. We're going to take that out and put the monitoring officer in.
Yeah.
Yep, brilliant. Right, item 6 is
Local Government Association draft code of member conduct.
Member conduct. Okay, and this is just to be noted.
It is really, thanks, Chair. So this was the consultation that went out in the summer. You were all sent through that consultation at the time, and I did take on board everyone's views who commented. So CLT members, group leaders, and my own thoughts were all sent through into that consultation. The findings of that consultation were due to be issued in the autumn, and they have been. The LGA had 1,600 responses. On the 22nd of October this year, they put forward a revised code for the LGA forum to consider. I haven't seen that. I understand that a final code is going to be prepared on the 3rd of December. It will be submitted to the LGA board for approval, and at that time they'll also publish an analysis of the findings from all the consultations. So my hope is that that will be back in time for me to share with you at the next standards committee. So unless someone has something that they really strongly feel needs to be brought out from the comments within this consultation from the summer, I suggest that this is just almost there to note that we did issue our thoughts through to the LGA, but for now there's nothing to do, but from December onwards it's likely that there will be. Okay,
Leslie?
I hope it's not too late to comment, but I want to speak up for respect. You know, civility means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, and there's nothing there and okay, it's a behavior that you can observe and measure, but respect is an attitude that includes listening, and there's nothing in there about listening. And if we had the option of putting something in there, then I would very much want to.
Good job I didn't interrupt you there, Leslie. Peter.
Just to say, can we have a definition of what civility is, please?
Well,
different things to different people.
That's over my wage head, that is.
The Oxford definition of it might be quite helpful.
So the LGA defined it, and unfortunately I don't have it in front of me right now, but they did define it within their draft consultation. Now, whether they choose to use that or whether they produce something slightly different next month, I don't know, but obviously once they do, I'm happy to share that with you. And if it doesn't pick up some of the points that you've made, then we can consider whether we want to add these to the definition ourselves. I think that's probably the best thing to do.
That's very helpful, because it could be a matter of dispute, whereas if it's in black and white somewhere, then we know where we are, don't we?
Yes, agreed.
Yeah.
Everyone happy? Just to note the report and find out what's happening. Can I just ask when the next standards committee is scheduled, so we got a rough idea when it's coming back? Will it be before May?
We do have another one, Chair, before May.
Okay.
I could have a quick look in the folder.
No, that's fine. As long as we got one, because we won't be meeting in April, would we? So that'll probably be February.
Yeah, I expect it is February was when the last one was, wasn't it, that year?
Yep.
So yeah, that must be the run of it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is the policy on social media.
Oh, Chair, we missed declarations of interest. Can we just do declarations of interest, please?
Have anyone got any declarations of interest?
No.
Good job.
Okay, we move on. Social media policy. This is to consider a social media policy for members. I think this is a good idea that we should actually do this. And it's good that the monitoring officers brought this up. What to put in it and how to draft this is another thing, because there's a lot of members got different views on what should be in there and what members can do and what they can't do. So I was going to open it up a bit to Rachel first, just get a rough idea what she was thinking about, because there's a lot of things in there about social media, about liking stuff and being your own and being a counsellor and being your next door neighbour and everything. Rachel?
Keith, can I butt in with a question before we look at the
Yeah.
Thank you very much. We're saying it's just for members, and I'm assuming that's because officers have their own code of conduct, but I just wanted to check that rather than assume it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, officers do have their own code of conduct. I don't know whether officers have their own social media policy. I'm not sure, because
I wouldn't have thought so, because this is the first time I've really heard on it, but that sounds a good idea to go ahead and do it.
But I would only be looking to draft it for members.
Yeah.
So since I've been monitoring officer, I have had an increasing number of complaints about social media postings. And one of the difficulties I find is that people or members think that they're posting in their own private capacity sometimes, but those who read those postings think that the individual is posting as a counsellor. So I think we need to consider how we deal with that situation, whether you have separate social media accounts or whether you remove counsellor from your postings, whether you don't use social media, whether you want to make it very clear every time you post, you're posting in your own capacity, that you're not posting as a counsellor, that you're representing your own views, not those of the council. It's just so much. You know, I'm conscious there's elections coming up potentially, likely in May. You're not going to be able to go out and canvass in the same way. I think social media is being used more and more, and it's something that I feel you probably need a policy around, but I don't want to be dictating what it states. I'd very much like it to be something that works for all of you. So really, I just put lots of matters there that I felt needed to be considered. I mean, some councils appear to have no policies. Some councils appear to have, you know, a policy that's on a page or two. Others seem to stream into like 40 odd pages. So it's really to be kind of guided by what you think you would need and what would help you, and also what would help if a complaint comes through to me on social media use.
Well, Do you want us to take food?
Can I raise a point on this?
Yeah, I've got Peter, then Judith, and then me. I've got a few things to say as well. Peter?
Well, I was a strong advocate of this for the last couple of years, and I'm pleased to see it's actually made an appearance. I think it's important in two areas. One, that there is an increasing number of complaints about people tweeting or whatever they do on social media. And secondly, with an election coming up, I think it is very important that we do have a clear set of guidelines. And the obvious thing to do, quite honestly, is to have 2 social media accounts. Because when councillors want to start which they're perfectly entitled to do, there's a great risk of that actually confusion between, are they saying this as a council, or are they saying this as a member of the council? And things get said at elections which might reflect badly on the council. And I just wonder whether, if people want to use it for electioneering, it would be a good opportunity to have a second account, which they could then use going forward. And if they want to tweet to their auntie, they can do that as well on their own private account. I think.
Can I just ask on that, Peter? I haven't got a clue what you're talking about. Two separate accounts. I mean, I just use this laptop. I use it for my council, get the emails come through. I go on the Zoom on here, and I also go on Facebook and BBC News and stuff like that. So would I have to?
The way to think about it is to
change
say
it
I have a
completely,
private number and I have a business number.
Have 2 computers?
No, absolutely not. You just log in differently.
I have a hard job remembering what I logged in the first time. That's why I don't bother.
So, Councillor Driver, you'd have 2 Facebook profiles.
That's right.
I just unbelievable. I just can't do that. I'm too old for this.
Have you got Facebook anyway, Keith?
Yeah.
Oh, well, you just have another one with a slightly different one that says at Norwich City Council or something like that.
Well, I think I got one that don't say I'm a councillor.
So that is probably your personal account then. But it's then if you share things widely on that, even though it doesn't say you're a councillor.
I don't share anything. I don't write on it. I may like a couple of things, but that's about it.
Yeah. But I suppose it's for people who do comment and perhaps comment on something that could be by the public. They believe that you're tweeting or posting in your capacity as a council. That's where the difficulties arise.
Yeah,
I think you must be an exception, Councillor Driver, because most people, if you're on Facebook, do post things. So I think the idea of having 2 separate accounts is pretty fundamental to distinguishing whether or not you're speaking as an individual, whether you're speaking as a councillor.
I have a word with my daughter.
Yes, I think we can all do it if we know we have to. And while we don't have a definition, we don't have these rules and regulations, I think there's a lot of opportunity for people to misbehave and some people not do it intentionally, but nevertheless it happens. So I think the sooner we get these guidelines, the better, and the briefer, the better as well, because I think if it's longer than about an A4, people aren't going to be reading it. And in that A4, it has to be fairly concise about what you can do and what you can't. But I think that you must distinguish between whether you're speaking as a councillor or whether you're speaking as an individual.
What worry me, Judith, on things like this, and Leslie and people here, I do like things, so I like. Now that is bound to be one of the things what could come up, where someone said, "Well, Councillor Driver liked that," you know what I mean, and stuff like this. So there's got to be something in this report you're going to do, Rachel, about members, about not penalising the members all the time. If not, you're going to be, someone's going to say, well, Councillor Driver liked that, and then you're going to have to tell me off or something like that. There's got to be something there to safeguard the members. Well, I can see every single member being up in front of the standards committee.
No, if it doesn't bring you
Well,
into
that's why
disrepute,
there is a
it doesn't matter.
suggestion. Yeah.
But that's like I don't know, that's like turning up to a public meeting and you got your councillor thing on, you say something.
I think that's why it's there for discussion, whether you want separate accounts. Also, it's not just Facebook accounts, is it? It's tweets, it's blogging, it's, you know, more and more members use different accounts, and it's then whether you should be all expected to have separate accounts or, you know, that's why I don't want to draft this until I've kind of got the view of what you're all thinking, really. And I totally take on board Councillor Lubbock's point about it only being one A4 slide. If I do only one A4 slide, it's literally just going to be bullet points, because I think my report's 2 pages long, and that's fine if that's what you want. But equally, I appreciate that you're not going to want to read 40 pages. So I don't know whether there are aspects of this report that you wouldn't want to see in the social media. So I think I've made reference to, you know, predetermination, predisposition, about the law as well, about libel, data protection, safeguarding copyright, whether you think that needs to be in or not, because I have the...
There's also language people use against other people.
How you could get yourselves into trouble.
When you get councillors that are prolific on social media, then it is very difficult for people who are not involved in the council to distinguish the fact that they know their councillors and they're expressing a view as a it's very difficult for them to think, well, actually there's a personal view and a councillor view. And I think that's where councillors often fall by the wayside with this, and that's where the complaints arise, because people often perceive that they are acting as councillors just because they know their councillors.
Yeah, I can understand. And that's like there's a lot on Facebook at the moment about Anglia Square being turned down, and everyone's commenting on this and that. And I haven't said a word because I'm frightened if I did say a word, would that be held against me one way or the other? You know what I mean? So there's a bit worrying there. But I see a lot of other people that have commented on there who are councillors as well. So
I think that's a really good example, Councillor Driver. So if you had commented on that, because it is a council business, I think if people could access that, they would say, well, you're commenting as Councillor Driver, not as your own individual person that isn't a councillor. So if your Facebook account, for example, is accessible to a number of people, then people will see that as your position as a councillor.
There's plenty of people who put on there slagging the planning committee down and stuff like this.
Chair,
the word. Yes,
Chair,
Alex.
I think Councillor Graham's waiting to come in with a
Councillor
comment.
Graham?
Thank you. I certainly sympathise with not wanting to have more than one account and have to keep logging in and out. But I think when you get elected, you give up a certain amount of privacy. So I would never tweet anything that I wasn't happy to be in the public domain.
We only had telephones at home when I first got elected.
I think the default mode is when people see your face, they know who you are. You're tweeting as a councillor, and if you want to tweet privately to your auntie about what you had for breakfast, well, you do that as a private message. And if you want to have another account, fair enough. But if the account that the public sees is you, then that should be compatible with your council position. And if what you think privately isn't compatible with your council position, then what are you doing anyway?
Okay, if we draw this up, Rachel, then bring it back to the next meeting.
Yeah.
A rough plan what's going to go ahead. So it's got to be agreed, I would have thought. Then I'm not sure if it's us agree it, or do full council will have to, wouldn't they? I would have thought.
It would have, yeah, it would definitely need to go to Constitution Working Party. But it is just a policy. So again, it's whether you would want it to be almost part of the Constitution and attached onto your code of conduct, or whether you want it as a separate policy that isn't, that you're that doesn't form sort of your code of conduct again. So I'll take your views on that as well.
Peter?
2 points, really. The first one is, can we agree that we do need a social media policy?
Yeah.
If we then agree on that, then the next step is for Rachel to draw one up. It just seems to me that it is quite urgent because an election is coming up and it would be very easy to fall foul. I mean, I think social media is a minefield for anybody. And the trouble with it is that, unlike a meeting, Keith, you said it and it's gone into the ether. You say it on social media and it's there forever. So you have a problem. That is one of the problems with it. So I think we should, if we agree that we can do it, I think we agree that it should be concise as possible, but not so brief it doesn't help. And I think we should also decide whether or not we would recommend two Facebook identities, two accounts. It may be too complex and councillors don't like that, but then maybe there should be a halfway house, which suggests that any post which is in the posting, which is in the least bit controversial, should have a disclaimer in front of it and agreed set of words on the posting. This is my personal view and not the view of the council. That would get round having two accounts, but it would be exactly the same form of words so that any councillor could then do that. But I think the urgency here is to get something in before the next election, because I think the councillors can blindly run into problems, you know, without realising it and wish they'd never posted on it. So I do think it would be helpful.
Yeah, I definitely think it should be helpful. But there's also about, we've also been told these Zoom meetings, I mean, we're out there to the public now. The public could be watching. I'm not sure how many's there. But we've also been told to watch what we've got in the background.
Yes, well, I can see those who've got libraries and those who haven't. But none of you are publishing a book, so that's not actually standing behind you. This is my book, is it?
Chair, sorry.
Yes,
Stuart Guthrie, I'm Democrat Elections Manager for day-to-day. I mean, just a quick point on, you're talking about the pre-election period. Just to just give a bit of background, that the date that starts is the 29th March 2021.
Okay, Linda?
I'd just like to say, when you're talking about multiple accounts, I'm not going into details, but one of the complaints that we had was that somebody, a councillor, was accused of having an account under a different name and tweeting and posting inflammatory things. And how do you feel about that? Having an account where you don't actually identify yourself, which is what the accusation was in this complaint, that this councillor had an account in a different name and was posting very inflammatory things on there. How do you do that? I mean, do you have to, if you're going to say you have two accounts, do you have to identify yourself as yourself in both of those accounts? Do you see what I mean? Because this is where we did have a complaint that was, as I said, I'm not going into details because it's a while ago now, but that was the situation. Somebody accused a councillor of having an account in a different name where he was posting inflammatory things. And I don't know how you feel about, you know, sort of rogue accounts, if you know what I mean.
Donald Trump. Judith.
I think that's a good example, and I think that's where it sort of comes as part of the code of conduct of being a councillor. It's wrong to do that sort of thing, and you must be clear and transparent in what you're doing and saying. So I think that would definitely be something I'd want to see in there, that if you had a separate account, you need to be able to know exactly who that person is, just removing really the councillor aspect of the name. I think it's really important, because I think if not, then it's duplicitous really, and people can post all sorts of things and you don't know where it's coming from. And that is some of the problems about social media. You've got no idea who these people are. And if they are saying defamatory things, there's no comeback. They just, you know, they just get traction, and people believe these things and act on them. So I think that's really important.
I always thought as a councillor that even if I had a private account where that was my views, I still couldn't bring the council in disrepute. by swearing and cursing all the time on my private account, or writing all racist abuse on there or something. But that's me. That ain't nothing to do with my councillor job. You know,
but if
you are bringing the council into disrepute, even if you've got a private account. So I think everyone should be careful, even if they only got one.
Trouble is, they're not.
Well, then you should be bringing them in.
Yeah, Councillor Graham wants to come in.
Councillor Graham.
Thank you. I think Linda's raised a really important point about accountability for what you say. And if you're saying stuff anonymously, then you're not accountable, and there's a much higher risk of saying things that are inappropriate. So perhaps the code should include something about owning your accounts.
But even if you own another account, you shouldn't be saying those kind of things either.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You only say things that you're happy to take responsibility for.
Yes.
And that means you're not anonymous.
Yeah.
But equally, you know, you are all entitled to your own private life as well, and to share what you want to share within reason. So I'm not saying posting things, you know, some things should, you know, are acceptable at all. But what I am saying is that you are entitled to your own private life as well. And, you know, it's kind of where you want the line to be drawn.
Sorry, Judith's gone.
Yeah, I do think if we want to be absolutely clear about things, if you are saying things in a private capacity, using your private rather than your councillor email, then it's or email or whatever social media you're on, the words that Peter said, this is my personal view and not the view of the council, prefacing anything you say is then makes it very clear. And I think it might make people think a bit more if they know they've got to do that every time. I think it will perhaps make them think twice. But it is another way of just being absolutely sure that what people are saying on whatever media, it's their own personal view and not that of the council, if indeed it is that way. So I think those words might be a good idea.
Peter and Leslie. Peter?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was just going to say, I was listening so intently. I thought it was Leslie's turn. Just to say that Rachel mentioned, should this be policy or should it be an addendum to the code of practice? As it's to do with the way you behave as a councillor, I think it should be policy as an addendum to the code of practice, rather than going through all the hoops of policy. That was all I was going to say.
Okay, Leslie?
Picking up directly on what Judith said, I think you'd have to say it on your profile, otherwise it's half your tweet used up before you've actually said anything. But it could be some simple format like, all views my own, retweets are not necessarily endorsements.
I think it's a good idea, but I think it's a bit like most emails you receive these days. You get a disclaimer at the bottom, don't you? It's, especially from a business that this bloody. I mean, there must be a short form of words that we could steal, borrow, beg, or copy from somebody that actually another organisation that does this.
Well, don't ask.
For me, it's either 2 accounts or the disclaimer, but I don't mind which way it goes, as long as it makes it quite clear that this is not the council's view.
Okay. I don't know who else would ever something you could put on there. I mean, even the BBC have to read out on Strictly every week, not to all their disclaimers.
I don't know. I don't watch it.
No, it's quite good.
That's his personal opinion, not the opinion of the council.
That's my personal opinion, not as a councillor.
Not my councillor. But you clearly enjoy it, Keith.
I wish I could do it.
Can I just ask just a few other points as well? Do you think that members need training on social media?
Yes, please. I think everyone do. We have had training on social media, but it seems like, I mean, I see councillors on Facebook and Twitter and stuff, and I think we should need more training on this.
I mean, the thing of it is, as well, is that it might be on 2 or 3 approved areas. I mean, because there's so many different social media accounts now. It's very wide. It's not just Facebook anymore. It's just not Twitter anymore. There's something called TikTok, isn't there, as well? Loads more. So maybe it would be ideal for the councillors to use 2 or 3 recognised platforms, because otherwise they could say, well, I said this on another platform and you didn't exclude that.
Judith?
So it should cover all social media platforms. Can I just clarify that? That's what I think. Is that what you were saying, Peter?
I think so, providing more and more don't keep popping up. When it comes to the training, I was thinking, you know, how many platforms you're going to have to train them on, that was all.
I don't think we need training on the social media and the platforms. I think we need the training on how this fits into our code of conduct and what we should be doing, and then apply it to all the different media. I think when the guidance comes out, and if it is just guidance rather than policy, when the guidance comes out, that's when we need some training so that every councillor understands the issue of being when they're acting in a council role and acting as an individual. And I think that's what you want the clarity on, but not what every social, and then it's up to the individuals to apply it to their own social media.
Yeah, good advice. I'm happy with that.
Leslie Stewart.
Thank you. Judith said what I was going to say.
Stewart.
Yeah, just in terms of members training, obviously we do run a training session prior to the election, which is often about the pre-election period and in terms of the do's and don'ts. And I think in the past, what we've done as well is we've expanded that to a training session around social media, what you can and cannot do. I know Nikki in the communications side of things does a lot of training around publicity and obviously the role, obviously councillors, you know, their role does change during the pre-election period. So that is in the diary. And obviously if I can encourage the members who are on the committee to encourage their colleagues obviously to attend that training session.
Okay, can I ask Rachel if anyone else has got anything else to bring up on this item, any good ideas that they can forward that to you?
I think
yeah, brilliant.
I know that Norfolk County Council had a sort of, I've not been there for a while, but they did have a sort of an online...
Linda, your sound is not great. Is there something in the background there?
No, I don't think so. Sorry, can you not hear me?
Yeah.
It's a bit echoey. Yeah.
Right. I was just saying that I'm thinking that Norfolk County Council used to have a learning hub type thing, and with an online package that is very cost effective to deliver because you don't have to have councillors coming in to take courses and things. And I wondered if there was a sort of an off the shelf type package that could be delivered that way.
Oh, we can look into it. That's a good idea if there is one, Linda. Thank you. Peter.
Just a very quick one. Would it be worth Rachel having a chat with Nikki Rotsos in communications for a little bit of help and guidance on this? And you know, maybe you understand it better than I do, Rachel. But I just thought because she's in communications, she would have a good sort of rounded view of how we might shape the guidance.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to do that. And I noticed like some social media policies are just drafted by the communications teams anyway within other councils. So it is certainly something that I would work with her over anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Move on. Can I just ask as well, sorry, I've never since I've been here had any issues in terms of matters that are like downloaded or browsed or uploaded, distributed on social media. I've never had complaints about sort of things being posted illegally or discriminatory, but I am aware that other councils have, and you know that's certainly been aspects or complaints in the past at other councils. Do you think that's something that you would also like to put into your policy? Again, it's just making it larger, but I feel if I don't cover everything,
we have got in the constitution or something like that we can use council's equipment to download I don't know, pornography or whatever. I mean, we're not allowed to use our computers in the group rooms, or even when you gave us the laptops or the films, we're not allowed to use them for personal use, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
Is that still in the Constitution? I think it is, isn't it, Rachel? Yeah.
I'd need to check. That's why I wonder whether it should be in this part.
Well,
if
I believe it's there anyway.
Added in. Does it need putting in as a part of a social media policy, do you think?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I just thought that we wasn't allowed to use any bit of equipment to do anything wrong, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do. I just don't know whether it should also sit here.
Can
I just think, welcome anyone's views.
Well, my only view is it social media?
Yeah.
If it's not social media, then it's something else.
Okay.
I mean, this is a social media policy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that I'm just conscious that I am not going to be able to fit this on 2 sides of paper.
No.
If it's three, I don't expect we'll throw it out.
I mean, I haven't even put any definitions in any of this yet.
No. Okay, so we might get us in the next year. Okay, we'll move on. If not, we could be here for a few more months talking about this. A bit's coming up. Alex, is that the last thing on the agenda?
That was the last item, yeah. The monitoring officer's got an update as well.
Yep. Rachel?
Okay, so I just wanted to update on complaints that I've had since we last met. I've had 5 complaints since we last met.
9?
5. So I had 1 this week, so I can't go into any detail about that. I've had another which was with regard to posting on social media following a council meeting. That was just before we went into our first lockdown. Can't believe I've just said that. Now, no one, at the time, no one knew what was happening in terms of where we were, what was happening with lockdown, etc. And we also we weren't set up for virtual meetings. So I did email the member involved, as well as the person who complained and the person who was seen to suffer a detriment as it. I did ask for the post to be removed, and no further action was taken on that. I've also had 2 other complaints about the same member. So one was the matter that Linda, our independent person, has referred to already as part of this meeting, where there was somebody posting potentially anonymously on social media. However, the person who made that...
Sorry, Rachel, you've frozen.
Yeah, you got to watch out what you say as well, Rachel, because you just said he.
Any further, so they raised it with me, but then they didn't.
Rachel,
I also had a complaint about
Rachel, you broke out. We can't hear you.
A member of the public.
Rachel, can you hear me?
Kind of gets us back in. They said that the member was wearing
Rachel, you're frozen.
Time.
Rachel, you're frozen.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we missed all that last 2 or 3 minutes.
Rachel, I'll just recap what we got. So you said you'd had 2 complaints about the same member that Linda referenced earlier, someone potentially posting anonymously on social media.
Okay, right, sorry, I hadn't frozen for me. So in that case, though, the person who was complaining didn't take the matter any further with me. They didn't complete the form. I emailed them several times to say, can we discuss this? They didn't get back to me, so that matter was dropped. And I don't know whether it was a relevant complaint or not, because I couldn't investigate it. I couldn't look into it any further. I've also had a complaint again about that same member who was apparently swore at a member of the public and was apparently wearing their councillor badge. Again, there's no evidence for this. There were no witnesses. It's really difficult. It's kind of one word against another. I don't know whether says whether there's any truth in it or not. I have to consider whether to pursue it, whether I'm likely to be able to get an outcome when there's no evidence, there's no witnesses. So in that case, it's just been dropped. There's nothing. I don't believe it's in the public interest for me to take it any further. And again, with all these cases, I do run them by Linda, our independent person, as well, for a second opinion. And I've also had a complaint, as some of you will be aware, and this came from both members of the public and members of the council, about another comment that was made in a council meeting earlier this year. That councillor was spoken to, but since then the councillor has decided to leave the council, so that matter hasn't been pursued any further. What I would say has happened recently, though, in terms of me getting complaints, certainly since we last met, is I'm finding it sometimes very difficult for members to cooperate with me. So therefore it does cause a delay in terms of being able to deal with complaints. If members are, you know, perhaps they've been ill, they're working, they're saying that they haven't accessed their councillor email facilities. And I'm starting to wonder whether within part of the constitution we should state that members must respond to the monitoring officer within a certain time period, because all that happens is it looks as if, as a monitoring officer, I'm not doing anything, but I can't take things further if that member being complained against isn't cooperating with the procedure. So I wonder whether we need to build that into our procedure going forward.
Yeah, that sounds a good idea to me.
I think that's an excellent idea, because members of the public, particularly when members of the public complain, they don't realise that the wheels grind exceedingly slow in the council, and they get very frustrated when it takes months sometimes to get to a conclusion. So I think that is an excellent idea, that if you are asked to respond to something by the monitoring officer, that you have 7 days to do it. And I think that's a reasonable request.
Do you think they don't reply to you, Rachel? So you think this will just go away, or it'll go on and on and on, and nothing will happen and stuff? Or what is the reason? I mean, I had a complaint against me years ago. I mean, I got in touch with you the next day. I mean, that would frighten me, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so I think that's it. Some members will phone me almost the second the email or letter arrives. Other members will just choose to ignore it, I think, or perhaps they just prioritise, you know, understandably, they might prioritise their work, or in some cases, if somebody's felt unwell, then they kind of want to get themselves better. And that's very difficult for me, because I can't start sharing that personal information with either the person that's complaining as well as a wider group. So it is kind of difficult, but it does mean that
you frozen again, Rachel.
Matters can drag on. I think it's full, but I have to take into account members' personal circumstances at the time. So perhaps could you respond within a 7-day or 14-day, and if not, I kind of need to know why they're not responding.
Did you actually get in touch with the leaders of their parties, or if it's them, someone else in their party?
I can do that, and I often do speak to their group leaders. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else on this? On any of the ones that have been brought in? No, thank you very much, Rachel. Anything else?
I don't have anything else.
Okay,
no,
thank you.
Sorry, I do. Just obviously we have a vacancy as well from our co-opted members. So just to, you know, make you aware of that, and I am trying to deal with that matter now as well.
Okay, fantastic. I think that's the end of the meeting, everybody, unless anyone wants to bring anything up, any other business, since we haven't met for a long time. Leslie, you okay?
Yes, thank you.
Linda? Judith? Okay. Peter?
No, nothing more.
Okay, thanks for everyone for turning up, and we'll see you at the next meeting. We'll probably be in February.
Thanks
Thanks for
everyone.
hosting, Keith.
Have a nice Christmas and keep safe,
Okay.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.